Hello, everyone. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker training. I am Richard Carlton, creator of FMTrain.tv, where every day is an exciting day where we get to learn about the Claris FileMaker platform. Yesterday, Claris released the latest version of the Claris FileMaker platform, I guess we call it that. Andy Lecates will be here today to walk us through some of the updates and conversation on that, focused on FileMaker Server, but it's kind of open-ended. So if you have questions, please ask us. Okay, so with that in mind, I want to pivot and welcome Andy Lecates. Andy Lecates, a longtime advocate, developer. You've been a developer for years. I mean, but then you came to Claris, and then you brought all your expertise.
Yeah, I first started in I think 1988 with FileMaker.
In fact,
Um,
behind you is that 30 years. You have that? You want to grab your 30-year block of steel or titanium, or what is that?
this is polished solid steel. There's an Apple logo on there somewhere.
Yeah,
You
we
can
see
probably
it.
see a little
Yeah,
bit, but
yeah.
it's stunningly gorgeous, and I feel very lucky to have it. It's funny, when I got it back in June, I guess. I was like a kid at Christmas. It's little things. That was my 20 year in titanium, and there's a glass one down here for the 10 year. So
Okay.
yeah, I got old,
Congra-
Richard. When did this happen? I've been around too
Yeah,
long.
I know. For me, it's 34 years. But yeah, it's like, but you were, and now you did years before, even before you went to Apple. So yeah, so it's
Yeah, I've used FileMaker in school, and I got to know the Claris sales rep for Penn State, where I went to school back in the day, and parlayed that into some job interviews when I got out of school and started with Claris in 1990. And you probably know I worked with Chris Moyer for 4 years in the late 90s and was a Claris partner and developer and trainer and all the things, and came back in 2000, and I've been here since. So privileged to work with Connor and great people like him. So,
yeah. Let me
thanks.
pivot real quick. So Connor, who are you, and why should we care? Is what I always ask people. It's a hard question, so maybe you're not
Well,
prepared for that.
I can
You
tell
should
you who
care
I
about
am.
Connor, for the
No,
record.
that the caring part's up to you, but I'm in the engineering team for the FileMaker product line. So I work with Pro, Server, Go, but Server is where I've probably spent the most of my time, and that's probably why I'm here on today's
So
segment. So
when your day job is actually coding, writing code that you compile and it becomes FileMaker Server somehow, some way, right?
no,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I should clarify. I'm more on the QA side, so
On
testing,
the
looking
QA
for
side.
bugs. Yeah, so I
Ooh. So if we have
am
a bug and then you help,
talk to
oh,
me. Yeah, you
well,
got
that
it.
also makes you
So,
kind of super important. And actually, I've asked Claris to bring Connor back in the future. Well, hopefully we can make that happen. But because he's QA and he runs into issues with server, he's a perfect person to talk to the community about what's going on, maybe what we're looking for, what we fixed recently. I know there's some, at least one huge customer-facing bug for my company that is in this current release. Uh,
Yeah.
and so I'm very excited about that. So why don't we go ahead and pivot, Andy, if we want to have show your screen
Yeah,
or
I'll do that. And
Connor's
then
screen, or someone's sharing
I'll
something.
let Andy do it.
I'll share a deck. I know you had Doug Wallace here yesterday talking about FileMaker Pro 21.1, and I asked him to give me his deck, which kind of covered everything. And so I've got that. And I have one other thing there that I think must to be mentioned, which is that I feel very privileged to have met Richard in North Georgia a couple weeks ago at the Pause Summer Camp Conference, and I got to go for a ride, and we got to fly around. And I'll tell you, Richard, I've been with a number of people. I think I haven't really shared widely that when I was at Penn State in college, I was learning to fly gliders at the time, so I have some experience around pilots and things like that. And dude, I would fly with you anytime. I trust you implicitly. You were a great pilot and tremendous tour guide, as it were, through the mountains of North Georgia. It's a beautiful day, great day for flying, lovely weather. And we had Bridget from our product team with us as well, and I think she really enjoyed it. So thank you so much, man. So FileMaker 2024, version 21.1. As you mentioned, we launched yesterday, and so it's out now and available. I know Douglas showed these slides yesterday, but just sort of recap the summary. What is it? It's a .1 update. So at that level, we might officially call it a minor update. So it's 21.1. If you look in the about box, you'll see 21.1.1.40 something, 41 maybe. The last thing is a release number. It means nothing. The third number we just hang on to in case we want to get a hot fix, bug fix out. But really, this is just the V1 minor update, if you will. But it's not minor. It's big. There's a lot in here. The engineering team knocked down like 300 plus tickets as they're developing on this thing. And to be, perfectly candid, some of those were regression bugs and things that, let's say we update the OpenSSL libraries and something, Connor discovers something, it needs to be fixed. We do those things too. But just in sheer volume, there's a lot here. And I know you covered a lot yesterday with Pro. We'll talk about Server a little bit more today. But anybody who is currently licensed to 2024 or 21.0 and has this active subscription, you get it. If you bought the perpetual with maintenance licensing, or you bought a finished goods product, you get it. So just go to the download page at our website and get the update. So it's a big update. Highlights in it. I know you talked about semantic search a lot yesterday. Semantic search advances, so the AI journey continues to give more tools. Notably, you can now semantic search against images, which is kind of great. We needed to get to compatibility with the latest Mac OS and iOS and iPad OS, so that's happened. We've certified, which is great. 21.0 worked pretty well on Mac OS, but I think, Connor, there were a couple bugs in there that we needed to knock down, and we're fully certified now, so we're Gucci. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we've tested on those platforms now. I mean, I think they weren't necessarily out when 21.0 came out, so we've had the chance to do our certification on those.
And we certified up to the 15.1 and 18.1 versions. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. HTTPS tunneling, I think your audience probably knows, we introduced a year ago, originally in FileMaker Server for Linux only, and originally Pro only. But over the course of the year, we added support in Go, and we've added support in HTTPS tunneling for FileMaker Cloud, and now we're extending it over to Mac and Windows as well. We'll talk about that more as we get
Okay, I
into
was hoping we probably ought to reinvestigate that, because we haven't talked about that in a while. So
this to me is huge, and I think it goes to the sort of server discussion a little bit, right? Because it's data API and OData as APIs. We're removing the limits for free usage, meaning it will not cost you to use it as much as you want. Right. And I think this is big. We promised at Engage back in February that we would remove these limits, but we're able to do it now at a technical level and in the product UX. So at 21.1, the limits to use the data API are no longer present, and they're no longer visible in the admin console as well. So when you update and you look for the API limits or whatever, it shouldn't be there anymore. The actual execution of the license will happen on our licensing server side. So for all of our actively licensed customers, we know. So, but I believe that the older versions of the console, if you don't update, may bark at you. I'm going into details, and I should be talking highlights, but net, no limits, have a ball with the data API and also with OData. It's still FileMaker 2024. Like, you know, the big push or the big emphasis of FileMaker 2024 is to get more high-value AI capabilities into the platform. And I know you covered semantic search yesterday, so we won't go deep on it today, but if people have questions, we can chat. But that's still, I think, the central sort of hero capability of the platform. But then you can just get so much more out of the rest of the features, and that's what we'll touch on the server side. With 2024, we did add the native support for certificates with, what you call it? Help me out, Connor. Let's encrypt.
Sorry.
That's the one
yes.
right there. I couldn't get the words out. I apologize. We added the support for Let's Encrypt, and so there's a strong emphasis in security on this release, and to make that just easier with some of the stuff that we're doing on the API side as well, we're making it easier to automate and deploy your apps, not just securely, but just with less hassle. And then there's a bunch of console updates. So let's dig in. HTTPS tunneling. So I mentioned that before, and I started to go deep on it, but HTTPS tunneling is the ability for us to take the traffic for FileMaker and do it over port 443 instead of through 5003, right? And so an organization that wishes to lock down their firewall and just make it dirt simple and open up one port and yet still have FileMaker traffic go through it successfully can now do that.
this was mostly an IT administrative kind of thing. I mean, for the most part.
That's correct. This was actually a big request out of our Japan market, but we're finding other larger organizations around the world are very interested in this as well. Because often when you're in a big enterprise, the IT department doesn't want to know about 5003. They don't want to be monitoring that port. They're not going to open it up. They just want to lock everything down and keep it very simple. So it's not so much that there's an additional sort of security feature in server. It's that we're supporting an IT strategy where they want to just simplify the firewall strategy and open up a single port, and now we can run through that just fine. And it's supported in Go, it's supported in Pro, and the update that's happening now is that you can do it on the Mac and Windows server platforms as well.
I think this one's great just from the standpoint that when FileMaker people want to go to an organization, say, hey, can we put the FileMaker server up? There's all these objections and roadblocks. And so what Claris has done is
That's
removed
right.
one potential roadblock that they might throw up in front of you, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, it's common sense. It's excellent.
It also kind of makes things simpler. Like we have a lot of small businesses that, if they're rolling their own, it's hard to figure out how to manage your firewall and do all the things, right? And open up ports. And so it just simplifies the equation when you're trying to get secure. Connor, do you have anything to add there that I'm not?
Yeah, I see you've got it in there that on Windows, the implementation uses Nginx. And so I guess I just wanted to point out that that changes over the whole server to using Nginx. So that would mean that if you're using tunneling on the same server that where you're using WebDirect, your WebDirect is now using Nginx on Windows as well.
So I don't know how deep we want to go, but I don't know if Jacob Taylor's here, but I know that at least my tech person was going, like, okay, IIS is the default on Windows. So if we're going to override it with Nginx, what does that mean?
We tried to make it really easy to sort of bake this into the installation of FileMaker Server, just like how you upload JDK, you can there's a UI to do the same thing with Nginx so it can configure it for you, trying to make that as easy as possible. Technically, actually the tunneling can work on IIS, but it's not stable, and so we recommend go this route if you're going to do tunneling on Windows.
All right. Well, yeah, I sense probably if I'd had my way, I'd get Wim to court on here with Jacob and have them re-talk about this topic again. There's a number of server topics here. That's one that could be opened up. That could be a whole hour just going through that. So, yeah.
Then I think we're using API as well to allow people to automate more. If you're using AutoFMS or another hosting service provider would love these tools, right? And so admin API can be used to enable and disable the tunneling, as well as we made it. Is it safe to say it's simpler to automate through the API the uploading of certificates because of the file format? Do you want to talk about that, Connor?
Yeah, sure. I was personally very excited about this one. When we first created an implementation to upload SSL through the admin API several versions back, the requirements there was to include the contents of the SSL certificate in the API request. And that got extra complicated because a standard PIM format has carriage returns that had to be encoded every so many characters. And so there was a lot of ways to do it wrong. So the enhancement here is that a new admin API endpoint allows you to specify the path to the PIM file instead of having to include that content. So it's actually much simpler to use and to get right this time.
The one I slid in the middle there is the all files must be on the same host option. When you're setting up file references amongst FileMaker files, we now have an option to require that those files exist on the same host. This was a request from a couple of our largest key customers that deploy their same solution in many different locations and never wanted them to cross-pollinate. But essentially, it's just good policy, right? It's a little bit like cross-site scripting opening, exposure. And so it's kind of the same idea. You can lock down your file references between if you got a 10 file solution or something that you want to host, and make sure that those files have to be on that host. Again, potentially, I guess, Connor, keep me honest, but potentially useful if you're worried about your app lifecycle management as well, and you're moving files in and out and want to make sure you don't get a hanging reference to somewhere it shouldn't be going. Is that right?
Sure. I think you said it right.
And then we've updated the libraries and modules. This is actually in the release notes, so you'll see it there. And in fact, for Node.js, there's a whole bunch of modules that got updated. But Clay Mackel had a slide on this as well, because there's a lot of investment to keep all these libraries current and up to date. And the summary for most of us is simply that the product will be more secure, it'll be more stable, it'll be better performant. We're getting up to the latest in all this, all the pieces, parts that we need to make server run.
Real quick for everyone, I'll throw this in. So we always tell people people who are getting into FileMaker say, how much should they plan on reinvesting every year, right, in FileMaker? And a lot of times we'll say, well, figure out what you spent to build it and then plan on investing 10% a year ongoing just to keep it up to date. This is that for Claris. They are reinvesting in the fundamental architecture, and they're just putting this here so we know that they know that we know that they did a great job in updating all the libraries that keep it modern and up to date. So as security fixes are implemented in these libraries, then we
That's
get
right.
the benefit of those fixes, which is really a big part of this. So
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. So we have that. The JDK version is now displayed in the web publishing tab in the console, which is kind of convenient. Right now, if you need to check and understand that you have the most current version or the right version of Java, you can do that from the console. You don't need to leave the console entirely in the server experience to go handle things and then come back and make sure it's wired. So it should be just more sensible for our administrators. Is that a fair way
Yeah.
to call it, Connor?
Actually, so there's two parts to this.
Okay,
There's
please.
the display of the version, and then there's also a option, like a button, to remove and replace the JDK from the console.
really,
Mhm. So,
oh,
and it does that. It does the restart for you, and then you're good to go again. You don't have to spend time trying to remember where you installed Java to. Whether was it into the FileMaker folder structure, or did you pick your OS level Java? It's a one stop experience now.
And then next we get there's an option now for server called only last open databases. On when you restart your FileMaker server, you may not. We have a lot of customers apparently who will have a lot of databases hosted, turn a lot of them off, right? But leave them on the server. And if server has a restart event of some sort, they don't want to be opening up all the ones that were closed, right? And then have to go back and close them or what have you. So now you can say just open up the stuff that was open, leave the closed stuff closed. Is that a fair summary, Connor?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I'm getting validation from Jacob that lots of clients do. I think so.
yeah,
I
yeah,
wouldn't,
yeah.
right? It just makes sense. I'm actually one of those people who every time I shut down my Mac and it says open all the windows, I'm like, no. I always like starting fresh when I start.
Yes,
That's
yes,
just
I
me.
always hate that. Oh my gosh, yes. Ugh. No, I don't want to open the 12 things. One of those caused it to blow it up in the first place. So stop. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And then this one, it may or may not, this will be kind of niche and who it really matters for, but enterprise license keys in the platform now are obfuscated in the UI at the console. And this essentially is to protect somebody who buys that enterprise license key. It's an unlimited seat key. And so sometimes they're used by providers who are like an SBA, deliverer who's delivering their solution to multiple clients or something. And in those cases, we just stopping the potential for one's key to get stolen and then used for nefarious purposes, right? But the owner of the key will have access to see it. All the other administrators do not.
That's right. But I think you're right that most people aren't going to be affected by that.
And then would you kind of talk to the folder and subfolder management updates in this?
Sure. Yeah.
that'd be-
And I think there's again two parts to this. One is and we're talking about in the admin console in the database list, you've got your list of databases, and as it's been up to this point, it wouldn't matter where those databases existed on disk. They would all show up in the single list. And so if you had additional database folder locations configured or subfolders, there was really no good way to tell what that organization was like. And so what we've added is a sort option and a filter option to both by folder and subfolder. And so you can sort the list, and it'll show a little bit of the path of which subfolder each of those databases is in. And then if you click the drop-down list that exists now above that list, it shows that folder hierarchy. You can just pick a folder from it, and the list will shorten down to just the databases that are in that folder. And bulk operations that you might do are also going to be affected by that filter. So if you wanted to just close everything in subfolder A, you could do that now. And I don't think you really could do. There was not a good way to do that before. I guess the other thing is that subfolders can also now be created directly from that UI as well.
All right. Next. Yeah. So what I'm trying to do is real quick. So Connor, do you have a FileMaker server we can log into? Because I'm thinking that maybe that might be beneficial. So real quick, let me tell a quick story about this release while Connor's working on this. And so Claris, because there's renewed emphasis on customer success and resolving customer tech support issues, we reported to Claris a customer that had a problem where the FileMaker server would randomly crash on Saturdays, and we could never pin it down to a specific time or a specific event. It just seemed to be on Saturdays. We sent this issue into Claris. Jacob Taylor did this. And Claris, and I don't know if it was you who were involved with that, Connor, but someone was involved with that. And they were able to go, yeah, that's a crash. We got the crash logs. And Claris dug into it and they said, okay, what they do sometimes, and this is on a case-by-case basis, it's very informal. Here's a test version for you to try out. It's like a special version of FileMaker Server. And we think we fixed it. Can you see if it still blows up? And what ends up happening is that if you have better results, it doesn't blow up or as much, or maybe the problem's completely fixed, then Claris knows that that was a win and they roll that into the next release. One of these 300 and some odd fixes in FileMaker Server is one of these fixes for one of our customers. So it's important to emphasize people that Claris is Apple and Apple cares about your success, and that's very, very important.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think the live team especially derive a lot of what it's about quality. It's about performance, stability, reliability. They really care. So appreciate your help in getting that one resolved.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So
I
go
think
ahead.
I've got a demo here I can share. Richard, it's going to make me quit and reopen Zoom.
That's fine.
You're right?
Yeah,
Okay.
we will let you back in. You can come back.
Okay.
It's all good.
You are good.
Yeah. So here's an important concept with FileMaker Server 1. With FileMaker Server, if you stay on Pro, Go, the basic clients, Pro and Go, essentially at the end of the day. And then really Web Direct is kind of a client that's really kind of integrated. It's easy to set up.
Mhm.
If you want to, you can get data out of FileMaker Server in a multitude of other ways, and that has been something that's evolved over the years. And so there was a thing called the XML Gateway, which was been out. It's still available in the product. Some people have PHP pages that extract data out of that. There's also what used to be a PHP gateway, right, Andy? You remember this one? And it was in the product about 2 or 3 years ago, and it was removed from the product. And so what people had to do, if they still had PHP pages, they would adjust them or convert them so they would use the XML gateway. They could still use that. And so that's still a legacy way of accessing this FileMaker, your FileMaker data through like a web page, right?
Yeah, I think in the modern era, we see a lot of customers that are moving to the data API.
Correct. Yeah, we have a question about the legacy over here is why I'm building this up. So
yeah. I think we try to be, as graceful as we can with backwards compatibility and allowing things to run and work as best they can. But this is one of the reasons why we removed the licensing limits on data API, no data, right? If people were nervous about moving their websites because they might incur cost, we just don't want that to be a roadblock. It's silly, right? We want people using the right tool for the right job, right? So
the modern ways of getting data out of, if you're building a new website right now, the modern way to get a data out of FileMaker Server directly to a web page without Pro or Go or anything like that is that what we call the data API. So you hear it called DAPI frequently. Then we had a whole week of training a couple weeks ago, whole week of training on OData, which is a similar but somewhat different method.
OData is really meant to be, the modern successor for ODBC, right? And OData, you don't have to worry about local drivers and all the things, and the standard has progressed well. And I don't know that we really talked about it. I think I had it up on that one slide, but we're fully 4.01 compliant now for OData, which is great because you can do complex queries across relations and more things and filtering and other things for performance management. So it's quite a powerful way to get access to our data if you want to use that for your integrations or publishing.
Yeah, absolutely. So if someone has, a lot of people here are experienced FileMaker users, but they might have an older server with an older method of maybe the PHP conversation, right? Certainly you don't want to update your old FileMaker server. If it's working, just push the new software on top of the new one. You need a separate FileMaker server. You have your old one that's running with your application your users are using, and you need to build the new server and migrate your strategies over, test it out, make sure it's good before you just kind of commit, right?
Sure. Yes. I'll take that. And with full acknowledgement that I am not a web developer, right? So I'm aware of the pieces, parts, and all that. But I don't want to sound too sort of Pollyannish about the journey. But I mean, I've been here long enough to know that once upon a time we had CDML. Then we
Yes,
had,
yes.
XML was a primary driver and XHTML for producing web content, and that kind of, the market just didn't accept it, and so we did get PHP because that's where things are going. But in the modern era, things are moving in different directions, and integrations and API driven, deployments seem to be the way to go, right? So we just want to be where the puck is moving and make sure that the
Exactly. And so this is Claris being around for a lot of years. People go, well, it's horrible that you have this old stuff in here. It's in here because the platform has been successful
right.
for me, over 34 years, like 35 years. And so
That's right.
that's what happens. We collect customers who value the platform and they keep
Yeah.
coming back. It's a good
Well,
problem to have.
it's nuts that we see customers still pop up and say, "I've got files from FileMaker 4, and can I still use them?" And yeah, you got to do a little conversion to 6 and 7 and 11 or whatever it is to get modernized, but largely those things still work, right? Which is pretty crazy. It's
Yeah.
it's something rather amazing.
All right. So Connor, are you ready to
Yeah,
move forward?
I'm ready. Thanks for being patient there. Let me see if the
We
share
are.
works.
There we go.
Great.
So can you go and hit Command plus on that interface, give it a little bit bigger, and then yeah,
Is that
awesome. Now
looking
everyone
good?
can see. It looks
Okay,
beautiful. So
good.
can I start at the top left
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
dashboard? No, no, nope.
Sure.
Start here. There we go. Start. You got to learn how to. Okay, he's an engineer. Everyone, we're going to train him how to demo. Start the first slide there on the left dashboard.
Yeah, okay. So I'm this is you'll have to ignore my actual version I'm showing here, but the feature is still the same. But yeah, this feature is actually in databases though. So
Okay.
we're gonna
Okay.
move
Come
back to
over
here.
here. Okay.
Um,
Whoa.
so, so
Okay.
I've got my list of databases. These actually all exist in different places. And so one way I can tell is to come here and sort by folder. And
Yep.
so now you can see that it appends to the beginning of the file name, the folder that file exists in. And so I've got two subfolders, A and B, that are part of my root database folder. That's one part of this. The second part is this, where it says all databases. I've got a little drop down arrow that brings up a menu that
Oh, that's great.
you can select particular subfolder do you want to see. And so now that I've just selected A, if I want to close all A files, I can do that.
Mm.
And then if I go back to all databases, you can see that it just operated on those A files. So that's the main thing that couldn't really be done before, to just have like a conditional bulk operation like that.
Can I
Yeah.
ask, so given that I know what we're dealing with now on this
Mhm.
demo, can I ask about seeing the Java? Because there was a question about the Java installed in the Java version.
Oh
Is that
yeah,
in here?
yeah. Let me
Where?
get this
There
running.
it is. Okay.
So actually, I'm on an Ubuntu environment, so
Okay.
this is not applicable to Ubuntu. Just to, I guess we should clarify that uh, the environments where you've got to upload and install a JDK would be Mac and Windows. Let me see if I can find a different uh, environment for that one, but I may have to
No,
come
that's
back to you
fine.
again.
No,
But it would be it
it's
would
right
be
there. Yeah.
here. Yeah, I mean, I
Mhm.
guess we do show the version. This is the part that this is a new part.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that
Yeah.
part.
So the part that you would see on Mac or Windows in addition to this would be another link similar to this one, but it would just say replace JDK, and you click it, and
Okay.
it
So
yeah.
can I ask a question? So,
Mhm.
and goes back to Jacob Taylor, who's not here, but there's more than one Java installment that you can use, right? Depending on your operating system.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So if I say the word Corretto, is that one of them? Is that no, or is that something
So
else?
I think what we've tested with historically has either been OpenJDK or Oracle,
Okay.
are the big options.
And I think
Um,
Corretto is the Amazon, but we're talking about the same thing conceptually, right? The same
sure.
kind of library. Okay.
Mhm.
So then if you press that button, one of the people on the live stream was asking, and say for whatever version it was, and you said update, would it then run the latest update? Would it get it off the internet?
Uh,
How does that work?
Sure. So the UI that you're used to seeing on Mac and Windows, where
Hmm.
if you don't have Java installed already, you
Hmm.
toggle this on, and it brings up that dialog to browse or to download the version that you like, and then go browse and upload it. It's the same dialog that you would.
Okay.
So you still have the flexibility to go fetch the version you want and just specify it in the browse at that point.
I love having this visibility in here on this, so you know what version it is. This is great. I think. Thank you for these are little what we call Andy, what we call these quality of life improvements.
That's right, exactly. And this release, both in Pro and Server, is just chock full of them, right?
Yeah, I mean clearly there's a number of them right here. So
with the data API, if you're using the script steps or using the data API, you can now override prohibit modification on entry, right? And so this is essentially to offer the same kind of control that you have when you're doing a import from another file set or whatever, and you don't want the auto entry options to go overwriting the stuff that's coming in because you've already pre-validated it or whatever. But is available here. Is that right, Connor? Did I express that accurately?
Sounds good.
I'll take it. I think this is a good one. FileMaker WebDirect, I think a lot of people love this. I can't remember if Douglas mentioned it yesterday, but we now support a couple of the triggers, right? So it's on object keystroke or on layout keystroke, but it's only for return, enter, and the escape keys, right? So think about popping a card window and you just want to make it easy to hit the enter key to close it or escape key to get out of it.
Escape key, yep.
Right, you can now do that, whereas before you couldn't. And the main reason is that to capture the keystrokes from the browser into our environment, to capture the events would be very expensive if we tried to do it, say, on every character as someone's typing. Right, we'd never keep up. But for this, we thought this was a good use case. So it gives WebDirect a little bit more of the dynamic feel like you might get out of a pro experience.
Margaret, how are we doing on questions real quick? Can I throw it back to Margaret?
There was like a brief discussion back and forth about the PHP feature. We had someone that said, hey, the folders, I really like the folders feature. I can't find it on my version of 21.1.4.0. So.
Well, for anything in admin console, I would just recommend make sure cookies are cleaned out, so forth. So that's something that's tripped me up a lot with any changes we make to admin console in particular.
Clear the caches and all.
Yeah.
As it were. Right on.
Clear the caches on your browser. Yeah. So
Mhm.
so the browser has cached an old setting, which is affecting the way the admin web interface is displaying the FileMaker server to you. So yeah, reset that. Not reset necessarily the server, but reset that browser's cache.
Yeah, and thank you for clarifying which cache. I don't want to cause trouble for anybody.
Yeah. Take your wallet, turn it upside down,
That's right.
and then we will, yeah. So,
Speaking
all right,
of cache.
cool. That's a good one. All right, what else we got?
I know you talked about this with Dougie yesterday because it is a developer feature to think about, but I'm excited about it, which is the idea that the server script engine now itself can call the script step perform script on server to create another session and script running on server. Before that would not work, right? So if I called a perform script on server, the script could run on server. If it was calling subscripts, they would launch a script on my local machine, right? So now, I think I'm articulating that right. But now you have some ability to manage how scripts are performed on server to essentially optimize your performance. But this one should be one probably used with caution. I think this is with great power comes responsibility feature, because if you put too many sessions on server running, you might run into some issues. I'm saying that a little probably too generally, Connor. Do you want to elaborate at all?
Yeah, that's true. That I think we're likely to have questions about what are the conditions in which we know it's going to be better or worse performance wise. But I think it really just does depend on the operations and how much you're trying to throw up there at once. But I think before this, there were a lot of folks using sort of local bot FileMaker Pro copies to launch up sessions, to have a whole lot of background activity going on. So this is really just a better way to do that kind of any work you would have used that old method for. You can just much more easily create more sessions on server for
Okay,
when you need to do that.
Let me dig in this a little bit. So we're
Yeah.
talking about robots, right? Right, robots,
yeah.
automated
Mhm.
kind of, which we every once in a while I'll still, it's an old technique. So for those of
Yeah.
you wondering, you have a process that you need to run, and if you run it on Pro on your computer, the benefit is you can watch it run. So if it hangs or blows up or does something unsavory, you can see it happen. If it runs on server, then it's really, really fast, but you can't necessarily see what it's doing. And so that's a given. But the question is if you have a PSOS session that runs for 5 or 10 minutes, is it stable? Is it reliable? I mean, it hasn't always been that way. So the question is how's it been for you lately with testing with customers? How's it? Let me be more direct. How has PSOS stability been in your opinion, Mr. Connor Brock? How's it been lately?
I guess I'm always working on troubleshooting issues, so I guess I could just speak to like the types of issues that you know, we've mostly been working with, have not really been in this area. If
That's
that's
and that's
anecdotal
all
of
the
anything.
question I'm asking, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like if
Yeah.
it was a smoking fire, then you would know, hey, this has been like a thing. But
Yeah.
so you haven't seen this, which means that PSOS, um, at the current time in our lives, right, is behaving well. It's an evolving technology. It has not always been there. The first time this ever came up, when did we put scripts in? Like FileMaker 11, and then slowly but surely we kept in having server run scripts. Right? Was that because I presented on a DEF CON that first year? So
Has it been that long? That's crazy.
yeah, it was like I couldn't believe it. So yeah, and that
Mhm.
was a script a schedule one. So if it's a server, if its server runs a script on a schedule, it's called SASE. If we call it from a client and we tell the client to run it on the server, that's called PSOS. The net effect is the same. They're both the same, but they're launched differently, is the idea. For those of
Yeah,
you
and
who
I
are
think
kind of
PSOS, in case it wasn't clear to anybody who's watching, it stands for the script step, which is perform script on server, PSOS, right?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's actually in the script workspace. Margaret, you're an intermediate person. Questions on this about because you'd be a good, canary in the coal mine. Do you?
I appreciate the. I was briefly distracted by people going like, "Oh, the browser cache fixed it all." So that
Oh, good.
Okay, there we go. So there we have
and
it. That's
so I was
that's why
distracted by all the commentary.
that's why we bring the smart person with us, Connor, right? And to be honest with you, I asked Connor. He didn't know I was going to ask the question, but it was the kind of answer I'm looking for. People always get nervous, like, what are you gonna? I say, Connor, are you having a lot of problems with PSOS lately? And he says, about the things I'm saying, that doesn't come up. And I'm like, that's all I needed to know. Because then I can work on
Good.
it with confidence and tell our
Yeah.
customers we can use it with confidence. And I can know that I'm not going to get called in the middle of the night, which is awesome.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we see some like engaged sessions on this topic, Richard. I think to me it's rich. Yeah, I've seen, for instance, like Vince Manano over the years present about optimizing performance and scripting between clients and servers. And I think a couple years ago, maybe in Japan, he was there doing it, and I was just knocked out by the depth of thinking. And I think this is one as well that we'll all get better at over time. So.
Okay, Margaret, did you have a quick question before we push?
Oh, no, I was just saying that I expect the PSOS can call PSOS will be very fun, and also I'll probably kill a server at some point. Anytime I had
Okay,
PSOS,
but you've been using it quite a bit. Margaret uses
Well,
it quite a bit, so
I
yeah.
put it in loop and it did 100 loops, and that was bad.
Oh, okay, so right.
Yeah, proper intermediate adventures.
So you ran a loop 100 times to make 100 instances of a script session?
I was adding stuff in a portal row. The problem was that the PSOS was also, I had a PSOS script in there for logs, so it would track what I was adding.
Oh,
Huh?
And
and
I
it would.
ran 100 PSOSes in the space of a second, and the server blew up. So.
Okay, I didn't hear about that one. Okay, it's like
Okay,
I didn't see anything. What was that? Nah, 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 nah.
it
Okay,
sounds to me like Margaret is going to do the engage session. I think she's already learned
that'd be
this lesson,
interesting.
so this is great.
All right, yeah. So real quick for everyone on this, a short summary is that if you run a script on FileMaker Pro and it says perform script on server, and the server you're actually connected and running on a server, it will tell the server to run the script for you. In the previous versions of FileMaker, if the server then ran a script and it saw a command say perform script on server, it wouldn't spawn a new client on the server. It would just run it itself, right? Right. And now it's going to spin another kind of like parallel user up. So that's where you could spawn and spawn and spawn. And you just got to be thoughtful about that. So yeah. All right, cool. All right, moving forward.
Connor, would you talk to the developer tool and some of the updates there? Maybe?
Sure. Yeah. So I see you've got the uploading databases. So that's a new exciting part to be able to um, throw files up, and I think it does have some other features too, like querying the size of the index and the size of fields. So
That's right.
there's some we're trying to be able to just give you more insight into the into the files, and the size querying I think is meant to be like a troubleshooting tool if you need it to, that you can see like, why is this taking so long? So you can see where the data is. So
Okay, yeah, I apologize to your audience, Richard, that I had that last bullet to say new commands and options. That was my cue that we should all go read the release notes and the document.
Okay.
And
I didn't have
about the
time to
uploading,
digest all of the new things. So
yeah, I think we in the previous release we had just given the ability for admin API to upload databases, but I think there were some limitations to that prompted us to think more about how to do all this with the developer tool. And so I think one of those for the admin API was like container data, external container data, was not possible to upload through admin API. So this experience should match the FileMaker Pro upload experience more,
Okay.
and just all around things from the developer utilities menu in FileMaker Pro. We're trying to make sure there's parity between that and this tool, essentially.
So as you add new features to the FileMaker developer tool, I assume they were mostly going into the command line. Are you putting them also back into that menu in Pro?
Not necessarily. I guess I mean the other way around, where
Right.
anything that you
Why
could
don't we
do, yeah,
rephrase that question, please?
yeah, anything that you're used to doing in the developer utilities, we want to make sure you can do it through command line also. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is, I think, still representative of the June release of 2024, but worth mentioning, right? I think the Let's Encrypt setup that's built into the console now it's a good thing for people that have struggled with certificates and maintaining them. It's free, it's simple, and it'll automatically. Is it every 30 days, 90 days, Connor? It renews. So I
It's
forget
90, right?
is it
Yeah, I think
90?
it's 90. Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
on. Yeah, so that's been an important developer request. I know a lot of our customers have struggled with it, but then we've got the system scripts to help support that now, or is that is just still the June release capability, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's some system scripts that were there. So
Mhm.
yeah, we've made a few a short list of enhancements to this, but I think this is an area where there's we still know there's more to come. We've been hearing back, getting a lot of good feedback about the direction we can take this feature, and so we're still prioritizing that on our end. But I think the actual difference between 21.0 and 21.1 is not huge in this area.
Yeah. So a real quick summary for people who are more Margaret, for like someone like you, Margaret. So we have SSL certificates that are on the server that encrypt it, and it allows us to trust that encryption. And it used to be it's to buy these in 2 and 3 year blocks or whatever. And so but it costs money. And so if you do this as kind of an open source free SSL, but it only lives for 90 days. So Claris is working to automate to allow you to take advantage of this. So like Margaret's setting up a WordPress site for yourself, and you probably have an SSL on it, right? And it probably uses Let's Encrypt, okay? And it's automated, okay? So Claire's just trying to automate this. I think the snag right now with this, Connor, and if I'm saying this correctly, is that when you implement, let's say it's been 85 days, you got 5 days less, you get the new Let's Encrypt, you have to restart the FileMaker server, right? Is that still the thing with this?
That's still true, and that's something that I don't know how close we are to solving. That particular aspect of it, that there is still a restart required. So one of the things that we have enhanced this time around is essentially being able to preserve the changes to this folder when you do an upgrade. So
okay,
we're setting the foundation to make this a long lasting kind of configuration. And of course we've gotten all sorts of interest in building this into the UI a little more, and so that's not in 21.1, but it's helps us to hear this kind of feedback of what people would like to see from Let's Encrypt.
Yeah, no, and from my perspective and from an administrative perspective, restarting a customer periodically is not a bad idea, but requiring every 85 days or something. I mean, I guess if it was fully automated, you could trust it to do it completely without burping. But most of the time, if I'm going to do a restart on a server, I want to make sure that my server person is nearby in the event of an emergency. They can,
Yeah.
engage and resuscitate or something, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right on.
Cool. All right. We're moving. So good feedback for engineering there. So part of this, everyone, is for us to get information from Connor, but then also some of your comments on Discord and YouTube and Twitch, he's paying attention to that. He can take that back to Claris. That's an important part of the conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
100%. Connor, I might let you talk to the slide if you don't mind, since we might need to switch over if we want to show some of this.
Sure. Let's see. Okay, so this is, I guess we're talking about the admin roles here. Quite a few things. Okay, so
some of these, I believe, are 2024 June launch.
Yeah, that's right. So the first
some new things as well, but
yeah. Okay, so let me see if I can get a good share going again here then. Yeah, so this is the schedules. So as Andy said, this was something that was already in 21.0, but it's still fairly new. So the schedules UI has been revamped entirely. So all the schedules will appear in a single list here. So if I just get an example of something, I know I've got some, there we go. So I've got a FileMaker script schedule, we get a backup schedule. Backup schedules used to appear in a separate pane entirely, but now it's all consolidated in one place. So you can sort and filter by all of these columns, and you can choose which columns you really care about. And these are settings that will be remembered as you navigate around admin console. Probably the handiest change that I like the most is that you can just edit these scripts just by double clicking them, and it'll bring up the edit dialog. So no need to click expand and then edit and then save at the end. It's just a double click, bring it up, make your changes, save it that way.
Okay.
So that's
quality of life things. Yeah, that's good. Okay.
Yeah. Well, having all the schedules in one place, I don't want to have to switch screens to know if I'm setting a FileMaker script.
That was another quality of life one. Yeah.
Actually,
the block new user connections.
Thank you. I'll let you lead me on the next stuff here, Andy.
Right
block new users. So a toggle that just exists in general settings. The idea of this one is that whoever's connected will not be disconnected, but no new connections will be allowed as long as the setting is on. And so the use case we had in mind for this is there's a problem on the server. You might need to do a reboot. You need to kick everyone out, but your users don't really know what's going on, so they're hitting ignore or cancel on your disconnect request, and you may still want to be as the developer in the file to do some triaging before you really reboot everything. This is a way that you can get logged in, enable block new users, kick everyone else out, and they stay out. They won't be able to reconnect at that point until you're ready to let them back in. And so
we call it the graceful landing the airplane. So we're going to land the FileMaker server, right? And we gracefully say, please put your seatbelt on and leave it on, right? Don't. So people would, I got booted out. Then they'd reconnect because I've got work to do.
Yeah.
Right. So
and this blockage also is automatically happening when you do a restart of FileMaker server as well. So if you're doing a restart and people would normally be able to interrupt that restart by reconnecting back, this just mitigates that from happening as well. The caveat here to keep in mind is that sessions would include some schedules as well. So if you have blocked new users on, just be mindful that the schedules are also going to get blocked.
Oh yeah, so that would stop PSOSs, right? It would stop. Would that stop? That would stop because PSOS is a user, right?
That's true, but in the case of PSOS, we were smart enough to allow those. If you're already in, you can still PSOS. But yes.
A new nugget of knowledge I did not know. Right, so you can block other users from logging in PSOS, when you fire it onto the server, technically it acts like a user, so you'll let that go through. Okay,
Because we
but
know that it's associated back to a real user. We're
yes,
just
yes.
considering it an extension of your experience at that point.
Yeah,
So,
you people are smart down there. I'm impressed. I'm glad. No, I just one of those moments where I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Andy, what's next for us?
There's the idea of setting contact info for administrators. I don't know if that's an easy one to just quickly throw out there.
That would be, yeah, administrator contact info. So this is really just for if you have notifications set up, like email notifications, you might get that email, but not necessarily know what action to take from that email.
This is the call Jacob button. That's
so this is where you can include this information that you put here will be included automatically in that notification, so that whoever's receiving it can know who to call, who to email with to say, hey, I got this notification.
This is the notification that Margaret got after all the PSOS.
Yeah, no, that's how I knew there was a problem, and a little like thing popped up. It's like, I'm like, oh.
Actually, on the topic of, I don't want to hijack it too much, but on the topic of notifications, there is something here that's new to 21.1 that you can now set it up to send you notifications for both errors and warnings. And so this is harkening back to an older behavior that I think we got rid of warnings, but but we're trying to give you a little more choice, and maybe you want to see the warnings. And so warnings include like credential failure messages. If you want to be notified of people putting in incorrect passwords or so forth, this is
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and that works because I had a former staff that hadn't been around in a year, and suddenly I got an email alert saying that his credentials were attempting to be used to log into a file on a server, and I'm like, So
yeah. Now the errors only, I think, is still if you don't want to get those, that's still an option for you here. So there's just whichever level of obnoxiousness you want to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, if you put warnings, you get all the error warnings.
Yeah,
right. So, but yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
good,
we thought it was too much for a lot of people, so we trimmed it down. But a lot of people are like, "Wait a minute, I need to know that stuff." So
I think the way we do it at RCCs, we have a central service that collects all of them, and then we can triage against that, right? So we get them all out, and they're in a kind of repository to dig through. And I think Jacob, as Jacob would say, any spicy ones get kicked to the boss's desk, right? Yeah. So things like that. All right.
Yeah.
Connor, we're getting at time, but there was also the ability to customize the Ubuntu swap file. Do you want to chat to that quickly, or?
Yeah, that's I think it's something you can set in the assisted install. So I think there's a default value of 4 gigs that if your Ubuntu does not have any swap file installed or set up yet, we're going to do that automatically for you at 4 gigs. And there's a default swappiness level as well. But all that's configurable in assisted install if you want to have more granular control.
Okay, so let's back up. So Connor, let me back this up. So if I go to Margaret, what's an assisted install? Margaret, do you know what that is? Yes or no? No.
Probably.
All right. So Connor, let's try this from the beginning. What is an assisted install? What is it? Why should we care? And then tell us what the new thing is.
That's a good plan. So assisted install is a way to pre-configure some install choices, so that you set those up in a text file that is you specify during the installation, and it's an important part of automating deployments. So if you're doing mass installs across a lot of machines, you just get your assisted install file configured correctly the way you like it, and from command line, you can do the install, point it towards the file, and they'll all be set up in that same way.
Okay, so I'm going to interrupt and then you keep going. There's an assisted install for the install of FileMaker Pro. There's a different assisted install, but does similar sort of thing for FileMaker Server.
Right,
Margaret? Yeah. So they're 2 different things, and they can turn on magical different things. So Connor, what are we talking about with FileMaker Server for this really? What is the assisted install doing for us?
Sure. So common things on the server side that assisted install would be used for is specifying your admin console credentials and passkey, or accepting the license agreement, pointing out a path towards your license certificate, and that kind of thing. So we just occasionally add new flags to that file that can be configured. And so if you leave those values blank, then they just get skipped. So if you just take a look at the assisted install file in 21.1, you'll see those new options that just down there at the bottom.
Yeah, I think for server, if you're provisioning, servers on a regular cadence, you're going to want to use that, right? Just to save yourself a lot of effort. There's certainly a lot of customers who are going to provision a server once every major version, right? And it may not be as important, but if you do it a lot, you need it. And for clients, if you're deploying to 500 clients in your organization, you're absolutely going to use it, right? To make sure everybody's got the right file cache size or whatever it is, right? All the settings you want to set up in advance. Maybe you don't want them getting notified of updates, those sort of things.
I guess it's worth mentioning too that we're talking about the swap file size, that's has performance benefits, and I'm not sure I could do a great job of explaining what the ideal size is, but that it's not specific to FileMaker. It depends a lot on your machine, so that's information that's out there. But the swap file is allocating disk space to be used for memory purposes. So we have the default at 4 gigs. You can, if you make the decision for yourself that it needs to be something other than that, then that's where we've given you this option. So.
Okay, so real quick on that, everyone. So I'm going to dial it back one notch, even be easier than that. So on your computer, if you buy a computer with 8 gigs of memory and your computer decides it needs 12 gigs for some reason because you opened a bunch of stuff, 4 gigs of it is not real. You have 8 gigs of chip memory, and 4 gigs is going to get pretend memory that's going to get pulled off a hard drive. Hard drives these days are very fast, so it's less of a known issue, but it's still something you have to kind of manage. So that's why we always say buy as much real RAM on the server or on your laptop or whatever, because the more real RAM memory you have, the less it's doing this swap file thing, what used to be called virtual memory in quotes. And so with Linux, with the FileMaker server for Linux, you're saying if there's no swap file, then it adds one, or what?
That's right. During the installation of FileMaker server, even if you don't specify an assisted install anything, we're configuring a 4 gig swap file for you during the installation. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have a server that's got, 2 servers that have radically different amounts of RAM versus disk space or what have you, I may very well want a different swap file setting. Yeah.
Yes.
It's just optimizing for the machine you're building for.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so that's why when people buy less memory, that swap file is what slows down. That's why those lower memory machines, A, they're cheaper, but B, they're going to be slower for you. Whether it's a server or it's a laptop, it doesn't matter. That's a standard thing. Yeah. So, Margaret, you follow that? That's a new one for you.
Yes, that was. I was unaware of a lot of that. So.
All right, that's what happens. We educate.
It's kind of fascinating, right? Good stuff. But Linux only for us, Ubuntu only, not
on that. Yeah. Mac and Windows normally automate that fully, right? And you don't have to see it, at least on the Mac at all. It's all invisible now. Pretty fast too.
Right. Okay. That's pretty much the stuff on server today, Richard. If you want, we could spend a minute talking about Go.
Yeah, Go. Feel free. I'm good. Keep going.
Just as much as Go 24 got some good updates as well, largely to allow you to put essentially any file format into a container field, any binary file now as you're collecting data in the field. If you're scanning and getting documents and you want to collect them, you can. And it supports CSV for import now. So it's just getting a little closer to the capabilities of data ingestion on the workstation. And it's, for many people, the preferred data acquisition platform, right? You're out in the field capturing data. You want to be able to get what you need. So this was actually also a big request from our Japan market, where the mobile devices are very, very important over there. And so, 24 got better at this one. We did improve the get live text as JSON, so it's providing metadata now. And I believe, Connor, I believe that goes to giving you XY coordinates on the locations of text and more. So you have fidelity of the things that you're scanning. Is that right?
Yeah, I just can't remember when that got added, but it does do that. Yeah.
Right on. I think there's a standard format because I'm going to Tokyo. I've been watching a bunch of demos that our team has been created where you can scan receipts, and there's always a piece of information in one corner in Tokyo. And so they know how to go find that piece of data, know exactly what field it belongs into, and those sorts of things. So it's kind of cool. There is a fix that I believe this is new to the release this week, which is barcode scanning works in a window when you have Stage Manager open on an iPad or whatever. So you don't have to have the full screen running and the barcode scanning works. It seems a little edge, but a customer that runs into it wants it to work, and there you have it. And then we just with the Get Live Text, we also inherited Arabic languages because the system is now available in more languages. So that works for us in markets where people are using us around the world.
Okay, try that again. So you're saying that there's more languages support on the iPhone? Is that what this is?
Yeah, essentially with Get Live Text now supports Arabic. I think there's two languages.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
And so in addition to the languages you already supported, we get those. So if you use Get Live Text, that we accrue that benefit as well.
Ah, okay. Wow. Okay. Excellent.
Sorry, I didn't mean to gloss over that one. I was just
No. I just was like, because people ask me, how do I get FileMaker in Czech or in Russian or something? And I'm like, so this gets back to the whole Winsoft conversation, right? Which is still a thing, I believe, right? Is that still there?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So good.
And I think in June when we launched 2024 Go, we got new widget support, so you can have widgets in your iOS device, which is pretty great. Or if you just want, when you launch FileMaker Go, you can have an app come up, right? So if you want it to act like the app you've built and not actually go into the Go Chrome or experience, you can do that. And then we've added the ability, if you're looking at some Safari data and you want to look at it, you can have the option now on clicking a button to just leave Go entirely and see it in the browser, as opposed to staying in a browser frame inside Go. Yeah. And we're fully certified on 18 and 18.1 for iPad and iOS. So
any questions, Margaret, we have from the audience? Because we are landing the airplane.
What about the folders thing? Apparently there's an extras folder. People are curious as to what the use case for that is.
Yeah, in the extras folder, we typically put extra, documentation and scripts. And so I believe in the extras folder for Server and Pro, we have the things that go to, I have Cohere in my head, but the installing local models. Is that right, Connor? And
I guess I'd have to double check extras. I know tools is where we put like the OpenLL stuff. So, but Margaret, are you talking about in the admin console? They're seeing an extras folder
with the folders. Yeah.
Okay. I think it should just pick up whatever you have specified as either a subfolder of the default databases folder, or if you have like an alternate database path configured, those will show up too.
Oh, so maybe extras was already in there for whatever reason, and it grabbed that. And okay, yeah. All right.
Okay. I was thinking we were talking about in the bundle. I apologize if I got confused.
Yeah, I think this was in the admin interface. Yeah, so interesting. Yeah, well, I mean, this is all a lot of this is new features. So if we do run into a bug, invariably it'll end up going past Connor's desk, which is exciting, and then we know who's handling it, right? So
yeah.
Well, it's an exciting release. It's a ton of fixes, and I know a number of my customers are going to be very happy to get this fixed, to get issues resolved and moving forward. There's always something, right? There's always an issue. Technology moves forward, bug fixes move forward, security is always moving forward.
We do have some great new content coming as well around semantic search. I'll share this only just for quick funsies, but Doug Wallace, who was here yesterday, has put together some very beginner content around using semantic search. Now you're seeing it in a Japanese playlist in YouTube because we wanted to get it available for the customers at the conference I'm flying to this weekend. And so we're going to make sure we can point them to it. But we're going to have a good set of nice introductory videos to what is semantic search. So if anybody in the audience is watching and they're just like, I don't even know where to start with this stuff, the first thing is literally just to talk with Douglas about what it is, what it means. Then you get to embeddings. Then you start, later on, we'll have more courses that go to how to practically start implementing into your platform. So this doesn't actually exist. I hope I'm not revealing a URL, but it's coming soon, and we'll have some great content to get people kickstarted if they're
excellent. That's good.
Yep.
All right, everyone. Well, if we have any final questions, that's about it at the moment. We greatly appreciate Claris coming on the show, talking about this. Tomorrow is going to be still on FileMaker 21.1, but we're going to be focusing on transactions. Then next Wednesday, Ryan McCann will be here to discuss a business update from Claris management. That will be exciting too. So everyone, thank Hey, everyone, we need to take a vote officially real quick. So it's the Nick Hunter thumbs up, thumbs down thing that he does. So should we have Connor back on the show, or is he unworthy? Unworthy. Yes, I need
Thank
upvotes
you.
or downvotes. Please upvote, downvote. Let's see it. Let's go.
You can't
Tell
hurt
me
my
yes.
feelings. So
I'm biased on this topic, so I'm with you.
Biased
Richard.
on that topic. So do we want to have Connor back? Okay, people are
Yep.
buzzing. Yes, yes. Buzz, buzz.
well, thank
yes,
you.
here
I'm
there comes the
glad
buzzes.
that it's. I hope it's up to all of you all. So
Well, it's great because you bring technical expertise that some things that we just don't see at our desks. Anyway, cool. Yeah, a lot of people are upvoting this. They want to have you back. So I will send a request to Claris Management, see if we can get you out of engineering jail down there and get you back on the show. That would be fun.
He does have an important day job, so don't take him too much. But yeah, we'd love to
Yeah.
have him back, and we really appreciate you having us today.
I'm honored
Richard.
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All
Thanks,
right, cool,
everyone.
everyone. Hey, Andy Lecates, thank you very much. Good luck on your flight. Have a safe trip to Japan.
Thank you, sir. Good to
All
see
right.
you.
Right. Bye, everyone.
Thanks all.
Thanks, Margaret.